up your engine! Alright, here we have a 2006 Chevy Colorado. The check engine light's on, so let's see what's happening. We'll start it up. Serve two purposes. It's cold today, so I'll turn the heat on. And as you can see, the check engine light is on. A bunch of other things too. But the customer doesn't care about the ABS light. The ABS systems on these GMs are crap anyway. They're often going out. And this is Tennessee. Nobody cares. Inspection. So we'll see what's happening, why the check engine light is on. Plug the old scan tool in. Right here where it plugs in. And this is a new scan tool. It's an Innova 5610. It's a pretty professional level one, around 300 bucks. I'm trying out to see how it works, and so far I'm pretty satisfied with it. It's so fast, it already has the code P0442. Evap emissions system, small leak detected. Now the most common thing is a bad gas cap, but as you can see, there's the old one. It's already been replaced. So that's not the problem in this case. All we have to do is push freeze frame button. It's a freeze frame and we can look at the data very fast. Now we can see the load was 0. We'll look at the speed. It probably happened when the engine was idling. Vehicle speed was 0. And in this case, the engine RPM was 0. So that shows it's pretty much a permanent code. Just turning the key on and not starting it is tripping this code. And it keeps getting pending codes for the same code. So it's a code that obviously exists. It's not a ghost code. And when it's a small leak on these things, there's only one true way to find it, and that's using a smoke leak machine. Now, if you don't have one, if you want to guess, the most common thing on this is the evap canister vent valve. But unfortunately, in this horrid GM design, you gotta pull the gas tank off to get to it, which is a royal pain in the rear end. Now, if you're gonna try that yourself, wait till you're almost out of gas. It'll way less than be an easier job, but do you really want to take the gas tank off for a guess? So here's my smoke leak test machine. It can test these things really quickly. You can make a homemade one or whatever. This one hooks up to your battery. It's pretty easy to use. We'll just open the hood. Now the machine itself is pretty simple. Just use a little mineral oil. We'll put a little in a cap and then pour it in the machine. One cap full is enough. Battery powered. One there and one here. And in a very short period of time, you get smoke. Now here comes the problem with this GM poorly designed machine. Well-built, well-designed machines, like most cars, have an evap canister test port for the evap system. Has a little green piece on the hose. Take this Toyota. We look down, there's the little green cap to test the evap system. Now this Toyota is 6 years older than that Chevy truck, but the Chevy truck doesn't have it. Just shows the difference in quality and engineers, right there. Basically, the GM is cheaper made, and they do have a tendency of breaking down a lot more than Toyotas, but in this case, they make them harder to fix at the same time. So they got two strikes against them already. So I have to crawl under, try to find a place to hook it up. Now here we go under the vehicle, and here we go with their horrible design again. All the other cars have them under the hood. Now, this won't reach the battery. So now we need jumper cables. Well, where there's a will, there's a way. Positive to positive, negative to negative. Now we have smoke on this end. So I'll hook it up under here. You can see by looking under here, the smoke is coming out from under the gas tank. So now to fix this leak, we're gonna have to drop the gas tank, see what's leaking. It could be the fuel pump, could be the line, could be the evap vent canister. In the case of this 15-year-old Chevy Colorado, it's here in Tennessee. They don't do emissions testing. He doesn't have to worry about getting it fixed for that stupid emissions code. He paid practically nothing for the vehicle and it runs perfectly fine, so it's just going to stay the way that it is. The evap system is simply an anti-pollution system. If it runs perfectly fine, here in Tennessee, you can live with that stupid small leak code. Now, when they get bigger, they can eventually have so much vacuum that it will misfire, it will idle poorly. Then you're gonna have to drop the gas tank. But this thing runs perfectly fine. So as long as I'm in here, it's cold outside and the heater does work good, let's check out the ABS system. As you can see, it's saying fault. There's the ABS light on. There's the ABS system. We'll click on, doesn't take long. It's got 4 codes. Right front wheel speed sensor malfunction, left front wheel speed circuit malfunction, right front wheel speed sensor circuit, and longitudinal accelerometer sensor gain error. Two of them are the right front speed sensor, and the left front speed sensor's bad too, probably. And it also has a problem with another computer sensor. What he paid for this thing? Practically nothing. It stops good enough. Who cares? He knows the ABS system doesn't work anymore, but it still brakes perfectly fine. I do have to say, it's typical to show the poor quality of GM, but on the other hand, it shows the great quality of this new scan tool I have. I didn't have to waste a whole bunch of time analyzing stuff. The customer doesn't have to pay much because it didn't take long. Some tools, fiddling with it for an hour. Plug it in, bam, bam, you saw how fast this thing was. We found out that he doesn't want to spend the money for problems that don't affect the running of this old truck. It's a secondary truck for hauling junk around in, and as such, it's perfectly fine to drive it the way it is here in Tennessee. Now, if you were in California, too bad on you California boys, you'd have to fix it or you couldn't get the car inspected, even though it runs okay. With the emissions code, you're gonna have to drop the gas tank, figure what's wrong, might need a fuel pump. These things often go out and the fuel pumps leak a little bit. But if it's only a tiny, tiny leak, who cares? It's not leaking fuel or anything. It's just the vacuum system on it that's leaking. Now, if it was leaking fuel, it'd be no problem. I'd smell it here and then you'd have to drop it and take it down. I've changed plenty of these Colorado fuel pumps. They go out all the time. But the guy bought this secondhand, so I'm assuming it's already been replaced. And hey, when he bought it used, it might have been replaced by somebody and they didn't put the seal in perfect, and then it'll leak like that. Even I've had that happen. I've replaced them and then the stupid code pops after I replace them because the seal isn't perfect. So whether you fix them yourself or not, now you know how you can figure out what's wrong. If you are in California and you're willing to drop the gas tank, wait till it's almost out of gas, drop it and fix it that way. But if you live somewhere where you don't care, hey, live with it. As long as it runs okay. Like I said, if the vacuum leak gets bigger, then it might start misfiring and not idle right. But this one runs perfectly fine, so who cares? As usual, I'm here to help you save money and learn how to do things yourself. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Cheyenne Zuki Car says, what do you think about a Honda City? They were a cheaper made vehicle, and you know, they're smaller and stuff, but if you don't mind the way that it rides, and they do handle okay, go road test one. If you like it, go ahead. They make excellent engines, they got good transmissions, they're Hondas that can run a really long time. That's just a marketing thing that they kind of want to push Civics more, to have Civics cover everything instead of having a cheaper made one so they can make a little bit more profit. There's nothing wrong with the cars themselves. It's just you drive one. If you don't mind the way it rides and drives, go ahead, because they can last a really long time. It's just a lot of people didn't like something that small bouncing around, but I know in Singapore and Asia and Australia, people want really good gas margin in the city. They like small cars. They love small cars like that. And Honda even makes more micro cars, from what people tell me, that they like, that would never sell in the United States because they're too small. But there they like them. And they're Hondas. They're well made. Sumana So says, Scotty, should I replace my steering rack now if it's not leaking, but the rack itself is loose and is playing a knocking sound even over small bumps? How long can I drive it that way? Well, you don't want it to be dangerous, but on the other hand, I had a customer that had a Honda like that, and he drove it 6 years, and then he sold it, and it was still knocking the same, and he still drove it. So what you really don't want is play that makes it dangerous and it's swaying, or your tires wear out. Now, if you look at your tires, they're not getting edge wear or cup wear on them, and they wear pretty evenly, it's still not that bad, because when it's really bad with play, they'll start to wear. The front tires will wear out bad. And when you start turning and it sways and you feel you're losing control at 60, definitely replace it then. But here's a tip. Let me tell you something. You might not need a rack. There's outer tie rods, right? And they can go clunka when you test them. But sometimes, if the outer ones are good, the inner tie rods, which bolt into the rack, go bad. And you'll have play. But it's not the rack itself. It's just the inner tie rods. Watch my video replacing inner tie rods, Scotty. You'll see. And they're not hard to replace. You might just need inner tie rods and not the whole rack. And that's an easy job. You can easily do it yourself and then just go to an alignment shop and pay them to realign it. Marty Man says, should I allow someone to test drive my 01 Tacoma I'm selling? I'm afraid someone will steal it. Well, one, take them for a ride while you drive it and they can see it. And then switch seats with you in the car with them and let them drive it a little bit. You know, people want people to drive a car. I don't advise to say, yeah, here's my keys, go trust drive it. You may never see them again. If you don't know the person, ride with them. You know, anybody honest, you're going to ride with somebody and go with them. That's only common sense. Like with motorcycles, a lot of guys when they're selling a bike, they will not allow the other guy to drive it. He might dump it and wreck it. But they'll allow the guy to ride on the back and they can see, look, I'm shifting, I'm hitting the brakes, everything works. And the same thing with the truck. You could drive, let them ride, and if they really have to drive, sit next to them and then go that route. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.